A seriously widening conflict there. We're joined in studio by our international affairs editor, Philip Turle, to take a closer look at it all. Philip, firstly, looking at the ground incursion into Lebanon, Israel says it's going to be limited. Limited how, we're not exactly sure. But what form do you think this invasion could take, given the difficulties involved?
Well, we've got a sort of vague idea this morning about how this might happen. I think you have to be very careful about the word limited, because it will be easy to translate that into it's just going to be a very quick incursion into Lebanon and we'll pull out, being very limited in a very small area of Lebanon. I think this is basically a word that can be applied to the time that's going to be taken to do this ground incursion. It's going to be a limited, timed ground incursion, because Israel doesn't want to go in there for long. It has no intention of going in to occupy southern Lebanon for a long period, basically because it knows that public opinion back home won't support that, especially if there are large numbers of Israeli soldiers that get killed, or large numbers of civilians in southern Lebanon, as we've already seen in recent days, that also get killed. So the aim is to go in there, do the job, and get out as fast as possible. I think that's the first point. We've seen a little bit this morning of one or two hits against Hezbollah positions, but it's difficult because they have a complicated terrain that is also not in the Gaza Strip. But I think what Israel wants to do is to hit operatives, it wants to hit Hezbollah sites, it wants to try to kill more members of Hezbollah and to destroy its military arsenal, rockets, missiles, launchers, all of those things the Israeli military would like to put out of order, so that it's in a stronger position afterwards to be able to introduce Resolution 1701, which dates back to 2006, a UN resolution, which will create a buffer zone in the southern part of Lebanon, where Hezbollah will have to go north of the Litani River, and Israeli forces will pull back, and there will be UN troops, peacekeepers, who will be in there, the FINAL organisation, which will be in there to protect the area, and that will allow the 60,000 or so Israelis in northern Israel to return to their homes. I think that is the overall aim of the Israeli authorities.
Now, as you were saying there, top leaders of Hezbollah have been killed in Israeli strikes over the past 2 weeks. Hezbollah, though, remaining very defiant. What threat does that group pose to Israel when it comes to a ground offensive?
Well, that's also interesting, because Hezbollah has been saying over the last couple of days, we've just been seeing in that announcement by Naim Qassem, the Hezbollah leader, who's been obviously rushed in to take the place of Hassan Nasrallah, who was killed last Friday, saying, well, we're waiting with open arms for Israeli forces to come in. Is he telling the truth, or is he bluffing? How damaged has Hezbollah been as a result of these attacks, the attacks of the walkie-talkies and the pagers, and the killing of their leaders, and then the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, and destroying, some American officials say, between 20 and 25% of Hezbollah's military arsenal have been knocked out. But of course, hundreds of Hezbollah fighters also have been maimed or injured as a result of these attacks on pagers and walkie-talkies. So it's difficult to know how many people are ready to jump in to fight against these Israeli forces. And I think Israel is banking on that also. The Hezbollah has been knocked out. So this is the time to go in there and finish off the job, if you like. It's interesting, and no one really knows the right answer. It could go well, but it could go badly. And I think this is where we could see a shifting of the balance in all of this, because Israel has had the upper hand until now because of air attacks, because of killing Hassan Nasrallah, because of these attacks against pagers and walkie-talkies. Going in on the ground is a much more risky thing to do. And if it goes in and it all goes badly wrong, this could seriously undermine the plans of the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu.
And in the meantime, we're hearing warnings towards Iran not to directly intervene. The Israeli Prime Minister, for his part, telling the people of Iran that they would be freed sooner than they think. What do you read into that?
That is also an interesting move by Israel to say that. Could he also be bluffing there as well? I think that is trying to push Iran into a corner, because Iran doesn't want to retaliate in all of this. It's made it pretty clear that it would have done so already had it wanted to send missiles directly into Israel. That's the last thing that Iran wants to do right now. Iran wants to preserve its nuclear program. It's got a more moderate leadership that's just been elected into office. There are even questions being raised as to whether or not there could be more talks if, for example, Kamala Harris is elected to the presidency of the United States to try to get some sanctions lifted against Iran. It certainly doesn't want to get dragged into a war with Israel, because all of that could fall flat straight away, but it needs to do something because it has to show its proxies that it's still a force to be reckoned with. So Iran is in a very difficult position. Once again, Israel stacking on the pressure, saying, we know where you are, we know how to get to you. That's why we've seen the Iranian spiritual leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, been taken away to a secret location, because I think there really is a genuine scare in Iran that because the Israelis managed to kill Hassan Nasrallah, who's been almost unseen in public for 10 years or more, that maybe, well, there is a bit more of a risk now that they could find the leader of Iran and kill him too, and that would seriously undermine the Iranian authorities. So it's a very interesting situation. How far Israel will go, how much they're bluffing, well, we'll find out, I think, in the next few days.